Hello, my name is Sandra Aneno and welcome back to my channel, Everything Mama. If you're joining us for the very first time, you're very welcome and I hope you stick around. So last week I took you through an introduction story, come on, like a background to my journey to motherhood, and this week I'll be taking you through 10 labor lessons. What are labor lessons, you're probably asking? Well, I'll be taking you through the night that I gave birth, the things that came into perspective for me, and how they have impacted my life. That's right, 10 labor lessons. Lesson number 1. At the end of the day, family is family. At least for me, like in relation with my brothers. Remember in last week's episode, if you missed it, go back and watch it so you can catch up. I spoke about how my brothers and I were not in a very good place relationship-wise. By the time I got pregnant, I think this might have stemmed from my teenage years. And this is something that I later on realized when I grew up, that I was a selfish teenager. Why? Because so many times everything had to be about me. So many times things had to revolve around me, at least in my little world. So I think I did not take the time to realize that other people have their own things going on too, and that I was a sibling. So growing up, fast forward, we weren't always in the best of places. So by the time I got pregnant, we weren't really on speaking terms. In fact, it's very possible that my brothers got to know I was pregnant through a third source because I don't remember telling them, which right now I apologize for. I'm sorry, that was mean and selfish. So the day that I went into labor, I came out of the theater, yes, and in a daze of like heavy medication and whatnot, I look up and my two brothers were right there. I didn't call them, I didn't tell them, but they showed up, which for me was like the first opening into that thing of, oh wow, they showed up. Like a part of me didn't realize until then that they were my big brothers. And I imagine in their world, they were like, we need to show up. So family is family at the end of the day because my brothers came to see me. My mom's twin sister came to see me. There were a lot others, cousins, friends. You know, family is family at the end of the day, not just those that are by blood, but even those that become family. We don't choose them, they choose us. That's something that came through very strongly for me, that family is family at the end of the day. No matter what, family has got to be family. Lesson number 2. Getting to the finish line sometimes is hard, but I've learned that the harder that it is, the bigger the reward. So it doesn't sound very easy to take in, does it? But in relation to this particular journey of my life, I would say that this statement is 110% true. Why? I might not have mentioned this in the previous video, but when I got pregnant, I wasn't married. I am a Christian. So there was a bit of a breakdown in that area for me as well, because like I told you, I was deep in ministry. So when this happened, I wasn't ready. I kept thinking, 9 months, how do I go through 9 months? And you know how the belly doesn't grow inwards, it grows outwards. That means the more months go by, it's not something that you can hide. So this whole journey wasn't easy. There were ups, there were downs, but my point is, at the end of the day, what came out of it was way better, was way more worth it than anything that came before. So it's about you not giving up. It's about you taking that extra step. It's about you saying it's hard now, but it won't always be hard. And when I get to the finish line, it's going to be so worth it, because I got to the finish line and it was and is very worth it. Number 3, prayer is a must. I can't remember a season that I prayed so much in my life for for literally everything. The journey too, it was one of a lot of faith. Faith over reality, faith over what my eyes were seeing, faith over what my mind was telling me, faith over what what seemed like the situation. There was a lot of that. So the day that I gave birth, I wouldn't say there were a bit of complications, but nothing went according to plan, like everything that I had planned, and I'll be sharing a bit later on that. Everything that I planned just went, everything that we planned just went out the window. So there was a lot of regrouping to be done. Later on, the day that I gave birth in the night, Maria had like a very terrible fever. I remember my midwife coming in because she was crying a lot. So this is me. I was into motherhood. I definitely freaked out. I was definitely worried because I kept thinking, I don't think I've come this whole far only for something to happen. You know, the mind goes there, so my mind went there. But then something within me said, why out of all the thoughts in the world, you're letting your mind go there? So usually what I do is if my thoughts are like getting away from me, I start to speak. I start to speak over them. Holding Maria, I got out my Bible and I read Psalms 91 over her. Every single verse, every single verse, every single verse over her. And I remember just thinking, no harm can befall her. No harm can befall her. That's the day that I dedicated Maria to the Lord, actually. So 3 months later, we had a ceremony where we dedicated her. But for me, as a mother, on top of all the prayers that I had been saying during my pregnancy, that very day, for me, that was it. That was the day that I gave her over to the Lord, because as a parent, there's only so much that you can do. But we have to believe that there's a higher power that sees and knows and understands way more than us. So prayer is a must in every season of your life. Prayer is a must. It doesn't make sense. You don't understand it. It's worrying. It's frustrating. Prayer is a must. Lesson number 4. Gratitude is a must. And I say this to myself, perhaps even more than to you, because growing up, like I told you, I was selfish in some regards, to people, to myself, until life taught me that no one owes you anything. No one owes me anything. No one has to do anything for you. No one has to do anything for me. But when they do, it should matter. It should matter very, very much. My entire 9 months, it was family and friends, selected ones, I'd like to think, for that particular season. And there were points both before I gave birth and after I gave birth that I'd find myself asking how it is that God just works his things out. He put people in my life who were kind to me, my father, my friends. None of the people had to show up at the hospital the day that I gave birth. None of the people that slept with me in the hospital really had to, but they did. When people go out of their way to do something that they shouldn't, but they've thought about you and they've decided to do it for you, then gratitude is a must. It is a must. Lesson number 5, plans change. Plans changed for me the day that I went into labor. So here we are. I don't know why we think we have it figured out. So anyway, these are the plans that we had made. 1, it would be a natural birth. I would push. I was strong. I'm a mukoko. Huh? I'm a mululu, a proud mululu. How can I not push? See. So I exercised. I ate the right foods. Did I push you people? That is plan number 1. That changed. 2, and when that changed, everything else underneath it changed. Things like we had prepped for a natural birth. Definitely the money for for a natural birth is not the one for a C-section. Now I had to stay at the hospital for 3 extra days. That is more. Those are more expenses. So there we were. C-section. I had to sign a waiver. Like the whole situation, I just remember thinking, why are things not going the way that I want? Why are things not going? Why is this happening? Why is this happening? And because we had planned, or rather I had planned to push, we reach hospital and they tell me I cannot push. Why? Because I am not dilated. And yet I had gone for a checkup where they had told me my contractions had already started like 2 weeks to my due date. So when I was hearing them saying you're not ready to push or you're unable to push for reasons A, B, and C, in my head I was just like, but why? But why? But why? But why? Cut the long story short, everything that we had planned just out the window. Now there was a new plan and we had to get on board. Which brings me to our question of the day. What do you do when plans change? What do you do when you've laid down a strategy, you've laid down a plan, this is what I'm going to do, this is what I'm going to do, and then you guys, life is like a pana. Everything changes. What do you do then? So anyway, moving on. Lesson number 5 is plans change, and it's very, very important what you do when that happens, how you react when that happens, because everything could be on the line. But lucky for us, I'm here, Maria is here, so I guess whatever happened, I handled it pretty well. I had a good team, so there we go. Oh, look at that. The sun is out. The sun is on our team, yes, like Joan is saying. Thank you, Joan, by the way. Lesson number 6. Life is fragile. It's been said that we are vapors in the wind, like we're here one day and the next day we are gone. Because plans changed, I found myself having to go through a C-section, which I wasn't ready for. And during pregnancy, I had done a lot of reading, so I was bouncing statistics off my head in the theater, and when I was being prepared for the operation and when I was being checked on by my midwife, like my head was just going poo, 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 inside there. When they gave me that injection, you know, the one that they do in the back, and like you start to feel like a big blob of nothing, like you just be there. They kept on telling me that I had to stay awake. Like I should not give into that sleepy feeling. I think it's called going into the light. Like I shouldn't go into the light. I don't know, I might be being dramatic, but I don't think. But I feel like that day, death wanted to snatch me, if I can put it like that. There was a point where I could feel myself going. And within me, in my inner subconscious, I was fighting to stay awake, but for some reason I couldn't. So a friend of mine, Dr. Ruth Obayako, was the only privileged person to go with me into theater on account of her medical knowledge. So there she was by my side, and she's the one who just kept tapping me and telling me, Sandra, stay awake, stay awake, stay awake. But like within me, I could feel myself going. And I remember my inner thought there was telling me, have you come this far only to go? Like I had a battlefield of the mind, like I told you. So there was negative here coming at me, and then I have to like counter in my subconscious. But it got me thinking that life is very fragile. I got into that theater. How am I so lucky that I get to come out, and that I get to come out with the person that I've been carrying for 9 months? Like, how lucky am I? We take life for granted. And I'm speaking to myself even as I speak to you. These are things that I'm learning. These are things that I'm relearning. These are things that I learned, and maybe sometimes we get comfortable, so it just meh. So as I share with you, I'm hoping to better you and better myself. So let's not take life for granted. It's very fragile. It's like this. And that day that I went into labor, it was more of a reality than it had ever been in my life, that I could very well die on this table. But here I am, here we are, so onward we go. Lesson number 7. There are things that only you can do. That's right. I didn't say me, I said you. Why? Because you're the one who is meant to do them. There is no one else. It's not me. It's you. You're unique. You're you for a reason. Growing up, at least my mom, every time I was going off to school, would tell me, Sandra, you're going alone. You're going alone to that school. Keep that in mind. Or sometimes, growing up, I'd hear, ibinu ini kendi ba, ingome, ibinu ini kendi, ito ini kendi. Equivalent is like you were born alone, you will do what? You will die alone. So there's always been that element of you having to do things by yourself, having to take journeys by yourself. And those are the scariest. You get, those are the scariest. Those are the ones that try and get us shaken up, worried, in fear, but those are the ones that we actually need to take on. Why? Because we were built for that particular journey. There's no one else who can do it. So, back to the day that I gave birth. Despite everybody wanting to stay up and be supportive, there came a point where everybody slept off. So who was it? It was just me. Oh, okay, and a friend of mine called Ruby, but everybody else. Not because they wanted to, it was 14 hours of labor, so you get tired at some point. So in those times when I was alone, that's when I was thinking the most, that's when I was praying the most, that's when I felt alone, but I didn't feel alone. You get, there was just that thing of, this is something that I have to do. So don't forget that you're unique and there are things that only you can do because, well, you're you. Next lesson. Trust that you're the best candidate for the job. This comes back to confidence, to esteem, to self-worth. So 9 months have passed by, right? That journey has ended. When I gave birth, a whole other journey began. When Maria was handed over to me, now when the drugs had like worn off and I was starting to have a better feel of my surroundings, doubt started to creep in. How am I going to handle things like, I have the perfect explanation. It's kind of like how you prepare for a theoretical paper and then now they give you a practical one. I had read up, I had watched up, I had shared up with other mothers. I feel like I had prepared theoretically, but now the practical paper had begun. So there I was. What kind of mother am I going to be? How will I handle breastfeeding? How will this happen? How will I handle this? And then I had to snap out of it. Why? Because no one else was going to do it. You get? At that moment, there I was, and it was that thing of you have to put on your big girl pants. Lucky for me, I've had a lot of support. But that very day, I started to have a bit of questions. But then I had to, one, tell myself, and then two, believe. It's not enough to just tell yourself. You have to top it off with the belief in yourself. So I told myself, Sandra, there's a reason that you're Maria's mother. There's a reason that this has happened. Now put on your big girl pants and believe that you're the best mother they could possibly be for her. Believe that you're the best candidate for the job. Lesson number 9. Everything happens for a reason. Yes, everything happens for a reason. As a believer, it's important for me to believe that every single thing that comes at me, in whatever form it does, it's so God can take the glory, right? It's so at the end of the day, when God turns it around, we're able to say that no one could have done that but him. So the day that I gave birth, I was hit with the realization that started my journey of healing to a lot of things that I'll be sharing with you in the future. But it made me realize that everything that had happened in my life had been to lead me to that very point where I was. Like, especially in the last 2 years to my giving birth, how things were with my brothers, with my take on relationships and friendships. And the most intense one is my mom. I'll also be sharing on that and how it has affected my life as a mother. But in that moment, when all those things were happening, the day that I gave birth, for the first time in a very long time, I held on. I feel like I had to. I latched onto this and it became my truth that everything happens for a reason. I think I was a mommy's girl. After my mom passed away, I carried around quite a number of regrets. With my mom passing, that meant that a very big part of my support system, because of the type of mother that she was, not the type of daughter that I was, but the type of mother that she was, the way that she loved, the way that she supported. When she passed away, a big chunk of that was just taken away. So I had to pick up on a lot of things for myself, a lot of things that I used to depend on her for, or that I used to take for granted. Now, I didn't have them. That means that I had no option but to grow in this area. I had no option but to get that. I had to make things work, for lack of a better word. So if that season of my life had not happened, my areas of growth in this season never would have happened, which would not have led to the next season. So it's like one thing leads to another. You have to believe. Me, that's what I believe, that everything happens for a reason. So how my life played out up until that point was for a reason. Lesson number 10. We are at the end. The first step is always the most important. We've had this so many times, that the journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step. Everything that we do begins with one step, and it's the most important one. So the day that I gave birth, the 9 months, that journey had ended. That is 9 months versus the rest of my life, right? Now this other new journey was beginning. It's not like you can say, take it back. I don't want it. I choose this one. I don't want that one. It's what was on my plate, and I had to take it. So that first step was taken that day. And here I am on this journey. I don't know how many steps later, but here I am. All in all, whatever you're doing, whatever you're thinking, whatever you're planning, don't be scared to take that first step. It's hard. I mean, even what I'm doing right now, these are steps, baby steps that I'm taking, but I'm taking them is the point. So for every journey that you're going to start, don't be scared to take that first step. And even if you do get scared, do it anyway. So thank you so much for sticking around for the 10 labor lessons. Next week, I'll be sharing 10 tips for newborn moms. So if you're a mama to a newborn or a mama in your first trimester of post-pregnancy, don't forget to watch Saturday at 6 p.m. right here. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to share. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so that you don't miss out on everything Mama, hosted by me, Sandra Aneno. Goodbye and see you next week.